Ahoy there, history buffs and sleepy sailors. Tonight, we're setting sail not on a sea of adventure and buried treasure, but on a far more turbulent voyage into the real, often miserable, existence of pirates during their heyday. Forget the swashbuckling heroes of Hollywood with their clean clothes and witty banter. The truth of pirate life was a far cry from the romanticized image, a gritty reality where survival was the daily prize, and comfort was a forgotten word. So before you drift off into dreams of doubloons, prepare to have your notions of piracy thoroughly, and perhaps a little uncomfortably, grounded. Take a moment to like this video if you're ready to face the salty truth, and subscribe for more dives into the less glamorous corners of history. Let me know in the comments what your favorite or least favorite depiction of a pirate is. Now batten down the hatches, dim the lights, and let's plunge into the less than glamorous life of a real pirate. Congratulations! You've just signed on to a pirate ship in the golden age of piracy, roughly between the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Forget the grand galleons you might imagine. You're likely on a smaller, faster vessel, a sloop or a brigantine designed for speed and maneuverability, not comfort. Your new home is a floating wooden box, constantly battered by the elements day and night. The decks are perpetually damp, often slick with seawater, blood, or the remnants of the last poorly aimed cannonball. Below deck, where most of the crew sleeps, it's a dark, cramped, and airless space. Imagine being crammed together with dozens of other men, the only light filtering through cracks in the hull or the open hatch above. Ventilation is practically non-existent, making the air thick with the smells of unwashed bodies, stale food, and the ever-present dampness. Your bed is a shared hammock slung between beams, offering little privacy and even less comfort as you sway with the unpredictable motion of the sea. Personal space? A luxury you can immediately forget. You'll be sleeping practically shoulder to shoulder with your shipmates, enduring their snores, coughs, and the occasional seasick episode with stoic resignation or perhaps a shove in the dark. Now, let's talk about what kept these floating communities going: food and drink. If you were expecting a hearty, balanced diet, prepare for a rude awakening. Pirate food was notoriously bad, often bordering on inedible. Fresh provisions were a rarity, usually only available in the brief periods when the ship was near land or had recently made a raid. The staple of the pirate diet was hardtack, a rock-solid biscuit made from flour and water, often infested with weevils and maggots. To eat it, you'd have to soak it in water, strong liquor, or even bang it against the hard surface to dislodge some of the more active inhabitants. Salted meat, usually beef or pork, was also a common item. Preserved in vast amounts of salt to prevent spoilage, it was often so tough and dry that it required hours of boiling just to become vaguely chewable. Fruits and vegetables, essential for preventing scurvy, were almost entirely absent on long voyages. As a result, scurvy, caused by vitamin C deficiency, was a constant and deadly threat among pirate crews, leading to swollen gums, bleeding, weakness, and eventually death. To wash down this delightful fare, pirates primarily drank water, which was stored in barrels and often became stagnant and contaminated on long voyages. To improve the taste, and more importantly, to kill some of the bacteria, pirates frequently mixed their water with beer, or more commonly, rum. In fact, rum was a staple of pirate life, often forming part of their daily rations. While it might have made the hardships of life at sea slightly more bearable, the constant consumption of alcohol also led to frequent drunkenness, brawls, and poor decision-making. So, while you might picture pirates raising their tankards in boisterous cheers, remember that those cheers were often fueled by a desperate need to forget their miserable circumstances and the questionable contents of their cups. Living in such close quarters, with poor sanitation and a lack of fresh food, inevitably led to a multitude of health problems. Beyond the ever-present threat of scurvy, pirates were plagued by a variety of diseases. Typhus, dysentery, and other gastrointestinal illnesses spread rapidly through the cramped and unhygienic conditions below deck. Wounds, common from fights, accidents, or even just the rough work of handling ropes and cannons, were prone to infection. Medical care on a pirate ship was rudimentary at best. The ship's surgeon, if there was one, often had limited training and even fewer supplies. Amputation was a common solution for severe injuries, often performed without anesthesia in gruesome conditions. Lice and fleas were constant companions, adding to the general discomfort and spreading disease. Basic hygiene practices that we take for granted today were practically non-existent on a pirate ship. Bathing was a rare luxury, usually only possible after a rainstorm or a visit to fresh water. Clothes were rarely washed, becoming stiff with salt, sweat, and grime, providing a perfect breeding ground for parasites. Imagine the constant itching, the festering wounds, the debilitating diseases. This was the unglamorous reality of pirate health. Life on a pirate ship was also one of constant, hard labor. Maintaining the vessel required endless work. Scrubbing decks, repairing sails, caulking leaks, and handling heavy ropes in all kinds of weather. During battles or raids, the work became even more dangerous, involving the operation of cannons, boarding enemy ships, and hand-to-hand combat. Discipline on pirate ships, while often portrayed as chaotic, was usually governed by a strict set of articles agreed upon by the crew. These articles varied from ship to ship, but often outlined rules regarding conduct, sharing of plunder, and compensation for injuries. Punishment for breaking these rules could be severe, ranging from flogging and marooning to even death. While pirate life offered a degree of freedom from the rigid hierarchies of naval or merchant ships, it was a harsh and unforgiving environment where survival depended on hard work, obedience to the crew's articles, and a good dose of luck. The romantic image of pirates spending all their time raiding and burying treasure also needs a dose of reality. In between successful captures, there were often long stretches of boredom and hardship. Sailing across vast oceans in search of prey could take weeks or even months, with little to break the monotony of shipboard life. Food supplies would dwindle, water would become scarce and foul, and the constant confinement and lack of privacy could take a toll on morale. When a target was finally sighted, the reality of the attack was often brutal and terrifying. Boarding an enemy ship involved fierce hand-to-hand combat with swords, pistols, and whatever other weapons were at hand. Injuries were common, and death was a constant possibility. While successful raids could bring the promise of plunder, the division of spoils was often a source of tension and conflict among the crew. And the idea of pirates burying vast amounts of treasure is largely a myth perpetuated by fiction. Most captured goods were quickly sold off or spent. In conclusion, while the allure of freedom and adventure associated with piracy is undeniable, the daily reality of a pirate's life was one of hardship, disease, discomfort, and constant danger. From the cramped and unsanitary living conditions to the foul food and water, the lack of hygiene and medical care, the backbreaking labor, and the brutal violence of attacks, the life of a pirate was far from the romanticized image we often see. So the next time you encounter a charismatic pirate in fiction, remember the likely reality behind the bravado. A life lived on the edge, battling not just enemies and the elements, but also the very real miseries of existence at sea.